used to live in the Southwest desert, and I would spend as much time as I could running out into the desert because it was amazing. You never knew what you were going to see. You never knew what was going to be around that next bend. And it was when I was out here in the desert, away from all the noise of the city, away from all the pressure of being around people forced to live in too tight an area. It was when I was out here that my head could clear. And it was out here that I heard the stories and the myth of the past. I found something quite unexpected there. Many of the stories were not all that unique. They were more universal. There was like this underlying universal commonality between all the stories that I've heard here, that I've heard when I was growing up, that I've heard when I've been in other countries. It was confusing to me that all these different civilizations had the same creation myth or had the same deities or gods with the same attitudes and with the same beliefs. How did that happen? In this harsh, barren climate, rain is the bringer of life. And there's one minor god who many of us are familiar with, and that's going to be the hunchback flute player, Kokopelli. Kokopelli is the bringer of rain, and Kokopelli is also the bringer of a bountiful harvest, a fertility god. He's also associated with spring, so he changes winter to spring. You can find petroglyphs of Kokopelli throughout the Southwest, and some of those petroglyphs are believed to be 3,000 years old. The god of crops, it's not an unusual myth. And I'm sure if we could get back far enough in time, we would find that Kokopelli may have actually taught early Native Americans how to grow different crops. And this god may have also taught them how to irrigate and how to bring water to the harvest. The ancient Hohokam that settled the Phoenix, Arizona Valley had created an irrigation system to bring water to their crops, and this irrigation system is the backbone of the irrigation system that we use today. It was the investigative journalist Graham Hancock in his book Fingerprints of the Gods who was finally able to bring some sort of cohesion to the questions that I had on why were there so many similar creation myths. Ancient China is no different, with their three sovereigns, Fuxi, Nu Wang, and Shen Nong. We were just talking about Kokopelli and how he brought agriculture to the Native American tribes, and that's what Shen Nong did. The name Shen Nong has been translated as divine farmer. So not really a name, but more of what Shen Nong did. And with each of these three sovereigns in ancient China, or in China, they have the word shi attached to their name, which means clan. So it was the Shen Nong clan, so the farming clan. This clan also brought in music they brought in irrigation. And at some point in time, the myth says that Shennong died. If you look at the picture of Shennong on the material Menaka, Shennong has horns and he's furry. You can start to see that there's some similarities between Kokopelli and Shennong. They are both involved with farming. They bring in irrigation. They both play a musical instrument. And, there's some myths about the music from Kokopelli that it was kind of magical and that you could lose yourself in it. I don't know if that's the same with Shennong. Some people like to associate Shennong with Dionysus, and I don't really think that's an accurate association. So if we're looking at these god myths throughout the world, the god that I look at more so is Pan, the Greek god Pan, who had horns, who liked to play music, and was associated with nature and the wild. The other thing that was interesting about Pan is he was associated with spring, and he actually died. Kokopelli, Shennong, Pan, all minor gods, and with horns, who bring farming to the people, irrigation. They play a flute, and the music is enchanting. So you can get entrapped in dancing with Kokopelli. There's two more sovereigns, Fuxi and Nuwa. And Fuxi and Nuwa are depicted as Fuxi is a male. The upper body is the torso and head of a male, and the lower body is a serpent. Nuwa is a female. Upper body, the torso and the head is a female, and the lower body is a serpent. Okay, so here's some of the interesting things on the Fuxi and Nuwa. They are brother and sister, and they are husband and wife. Their parents are going to be the sky, heaven, and the earth. So here we see that trinity that I talk so much about in Chinese medicine: heaven, humanity, and earth. Nuwa and Fuxi are humanity, and they sit between heaven and earth. I wanted to do these two together just because of all the symbolism that goes with them. It makes more sense to look at them together. Now, if we go over to Egypt, we see Osiris and Isis, same thing, brother, sister, and husband and wife. And guess who their parents were? You got it, heaven and earth. Let's look at Nuwa. All the powers that Nuwa has, Isis has the same powers in Egypt. So Nuwa has the ability to create life. She knows the God principle, and she creates humanity from clay. She's also the one who stopped the flood that destroyed humanity in the book of Genesis. History found Nuwa and Isis 5,000 years ago. What really amazed me was at that time, there was already a creation myth of a great flood that had destroyed the earth, and God brought back humanity. That's Nuwa. What about Fuxi? Fuxi and Osiris have some very similar background. Also, they are very important in the creation myths because what they did is they introduced civilization to humanity. So Nuwa creates a people, and Fuxi teaches them how to work as a civilization. There's another part of these creation myths that are really interesting. They say that Osiris, after he taught Egypt how to live in a civilization, his goal was to go out into the world and teach the rest of humanity about civilization. Now, this is a similar idea that is expressed in the texts in ancient China. So there's the Chinese, the civilized, and then there's everybody else. Here's the thing that I thought was really interesting. In a couple of the ancient texts that I was reading, China believed it was their responsibility to reach out and to teach these other people about living in a society. So kind of interesting, huh? There's all sorts of interesting tidbits that you stumble upon when you're reading. And another one was that after the great floods, the world was very lonely, and Noah created humanity because she was lonely. And Fuxi and Nuwa are known as being very just and very kind and very benevolent, very similar to Osiris and Isis. So amazing, huh? You can travel across the world and you can hear people's myths, hear their gods, hear about their creation myths, and there's this underlying commonality between them. There's this similarity in lands that were worlds apart. Okay, so there is some amazing information on ancient China, their myths, their legends, their gods. And until next time, I will catch you on the other side.